would say he's comfortable on that, right? Like that's a new pick.
Yeah, that's the one where you are just hovering over that pick and you're just kind of like autopilot locking in every draft. So the Ashe locked in. It can be a flex between LP and Hung. Both of them have played this champion in both their roles. On the other side, you kind of understand you're going to be against this like slowly oppressive kind of bleed you out kind of bot lane. Draven kind of slaps that and says, no, there is no bleeding out. We are fighting at level 1. Expect something like a Nautilus, maybe something engaged like to catch out that Ashe early on.
Interesting here that this is the opt-in for BLG in the first phase. And again, remember, we are in 13.3. We were talking a little bit about those changes coming in the draft in the first series here, but I want to see how this very aggressive stance for BLG has been. We'll pick up that Renekton.
And that's a takeaway from Zika as well, because Zika has played 7 games in that Renekton, so you've taken away the 10-game Varus from LNG's bot side, you've taken the 7-game Renekton from that top side, which are their most played by quite a long way. Maybe you're forcing LNG onto stuff that they're not quite as comfortable on, and of course these are very strong kind of blind picks in their own ways.
Yeah, let's go. We wanted to see the early pathing, and you cannot let Shun get under your skin here in the jungle. And I know something that's a little bit creepy crawly that LNG will be happy to have on their side. Tarzan gets that Elise. It is the Jayce locked in as well as the finishing of the first phase for LNG.
Now this is going to be a really interesting first few levels because Scout has been on a tear in his own right. I think actually one of his previous Jayce games was with the Elise counter picked with it as well. You know that with the Draven, you're likely going to see something like a Nautilus. Bot lane is going to be flipping early. Now, if you hit level 3 and you have Jayce who's taken a hard couple of early trades, Scout gets control of a lane, regardless of what that is, Elise starts flying into the map, starts going into the enemy jungle as well, which can maybe stop Shun from pathing so aggressively. A shot blast over the wall from something like Scout can factor into that. Already, LNG starting to set up a bot lane aggressive first 3 levels, or at least bot side. This should be, if we put the kind of the microscope onto early aggressive pathing, that's going to be something which LNG have a lot of tools to play with.
So far, so good in that respect. As we are getting to the second phase, we do get that Annie ban from LNG. It was the Fiora ban from BLG, yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah, that Annie got buffed on this patch, so the Molten Shield in particular gives you a lot of ability to play in both support and the mid lane role. Wonder if we're going to go see something which see something bound away, maybe like Azir or Rise from LNG.
There's another comfort.
It's another comfort pick. But I think you got to ban away something that can fight the early mid waves. I think that's very important from BLG to kind of like stop Scout and Tarzan as, again, this premier mid-jungle duo in the LPL, kind of having uncontested free reign over the early game. We saw what happened in the last series, right? When you give over very strong mid-jungle control, it gets problematic. It's actually going to be the Syndra takeaway from Yagao pick, which he's picked up a couple of times this split. Of course, Syndra was changed coming into this season and has become a... it's kind of fell off a little bit. I've seen less of it. I'm wondering if we start seeing something like a Rise. I think Yagao's Rise could be important here, or something like the Azir.
Now, obviously, we're going to be probably saving counter pick, I would say, for mid lane, as I would hope at least, as the jungle should come through here for BLG, and we'll see what those last 2 responses are for LNG. I like this, though, from Shun. I love to see kind of that forward stance, at least on the Vi, and it does come through, yet again, comfort for Shun.
It's comfort for Shun, and if we're going to go talk about comfort for Yagao, this opens up an Ahri angle as well. You have the Ahri-Vi combo, which can fight in the mid-jungle 2v2. It can pick up either member of this duo, and it could be leading towards a really fun mid-jungle confrontation across both sides of this rift. Going to have the double Freljord bot lane, Braum locked in for Hung, which is level 1 fighting. It is a Nautilus counter in a lot of ways, because Nautilus hooks in, the shield's put up, and then you lose the damage trade. And then on the top side of the map, now Zika's just going to say, I need to survive. I don't care if I'm just going to get wailed on by the Renekton. I'm here to just scale up in peace while the bot side of the rift has fun.
Which I think is okay to some extent with the first look here in game number 1. I would say, obviously, adaptation throughout the series is going to need to be on the cusp here, but would love to see something from the mid lane from Yagao with this counter pick that does have some strength to its own right.
Yeah, so the thing about picking something like an Ahri, you now have to play the double tanks. Maybe you have to go towards Talir and Azir now and just say, look, we can't play as heavily through the burst combo of mid-jungle. I think that's the logic. When you see the Vi locked in, you think, okay, maybe pick it into something that can play very strong in the mid-jungle 2v2. The Sion or the Braum dissuade you from picking something with no ability to shred tanks, though. Azir picked up for Yagao. You have a bit of a range advantage in terms of consistent DPS, but of course, Jayce can very much poke you out. So, looking at all these 5 champions locked in, there is so much ability to fight early here, Mazel. So much ability for Bin to kind of just like wail on top side alone. The bottom side of the map, though, is going to be Braum, Nautilus looking for level 1 trades and something comboing off of that. This is all about that early aggressive play.
I'm very much looking at where these junglers are going to be kind of pathing.
Stay frosty in this first game. You have to really be on your A game. You cannot afford to blink against these players in LEG and LNG rather. You can't afford to blink against them. One mistake and suddenly that Jayce and that Elise start popping you. Early game is the focus here.
As we hit the rift, get the beautiful skybox, and game 1 kicks off with a little bit of showing in bottom lane from LNG, trying to take advantage of the level 1 from the Braum. Oh, look at those moves, Bin. God, I love that gif every time I see it. It's been used like literally every time they play. It never gets old.
Never gets old. So, 5-man fan coming out from BLG. They're not looking for their own level 1. As you're saying, Braum, level 1, so insanely strong.
Wait, was that a turtle?
One of the strongest passes of the game. Sorry, what?
There was like a neon turtle in the sign, in the fan sign.
I'm not going to lie,
cool.
I was looking at the mini-map, not the crowd
Well,
cam.
you know what?
Okay,
you know where my
that.
play-by-play brain goes. It's like very shiny and a light. You know, I'm like a moth. Just don't leave your clothes out around here. I'll eat them.
Yeah, don't leave the clothes out. Keep those shiny lights down to a minimum. As the light show will be starting soon enough. Bin sees Tarzan on his top side. Both junglers starting on top side, as we said. Very likely for these junglers to head towards bot side in their own way. Is going to be pathing towards bot lane slowly, but surely in this case, Vi going to pick up the red buff first. And we're going to go see what these early trades are going to be like. I don't think you can really hook into this lane as on. You're kind of looking to just see if you can allow Draven to keep catching axes. But unlike other aggressive lanes which are playing through the Draven, the Braum just shuts you down too much early to look for the early hooks. And we have ourselves a pause to ruminate a little more. A little more space to think about how things are going to play out.
The thing is, as well, on not having that aftershock, that turnaround damage from the Braum Ashe is so potent against a not so tanky Nautilus, at least in the early parts of the game. So definitely looking at that 2v2 matchup and how fast the jungles can get down there, I guess.
My logic would be, you take the Glacial and you're like, okay, we're not winning because the Nautilus has got aftershock and takes a little longer to die. The way that you win is you get the Glacial slow onto the Ashe so Draven can kill the Ashe, so there's no damage left to kill me. Because once you, the champion I always relate this to is, think about Camille. And this is completely different because Camille's obviously a top laner, very much on the other side of the map. But when Camille goes into a play with a hook shot, you don't really get out. Same kind of thing with the Nautilus. You hook in, especially at early levels before your hook cooldown is very low and maybe you have a chance to like flash and hook away, something like that. If you're in the fight, you have to win that fight or you die trying.
Yeah.
I think that's very much the logic here.
No, I also do want to talk. Do we see any big influence from these patch changes in the bottom lane here, especially in this matchup specifically, and kind of one of the iterations where we get a tank bottom lane going into each other?
So one thing which actually affects both of these champions is so both of these champions had some of their ratios on their abilities buffed. So I think both Nautilus and Braum had maybe some AP ratios changed. I can't quite remember for Braum. I know that is the case for Nautilus. Braum did have some changes. What this means is that once you get out of laning phase and you've completed your support item and you get towards the few bits of gold that you do get as a support, it does mean that you have a little bit more power to play kind of after your laning phase has just ended. It's not quite the same as, say, comparing it to something like solo queue, where actually sometimes your melee supports can get a lot of gold and you kind of get more use out of those scaling things, because let's be honest, ratios only matter if you're building items to use those ratios. You rarely get to do that as a support. Zon does take a Q to the face. Not going to be able to get much outside of that, though. And we are back onto that rift and seeing how this laning phase will play out.
So it seems like there was a report of an audio issue for the bottom lane of LNG. Looks like things have been solved here as we get into it now. Tarzan does get spotted out by some of that early warding that BLG put down.
So, see both these junglers paying attention to the spot side early.
That's a level 2 without LNG hit again. You get that flash early from On to make sure they can stick some of that damage.
Yeah, how the heck did that end up happening? On and out. Actually need to get themselves something out of this early game. Tarzan heading towards this bot side as well. None of these junglers, neither of them rather, able to impact this bot lane just yet. But they're both level 3. They're both hanging around bot side. This has been the name of the game for junglers on this patch, in this season rather. Get towards that bot lane, hang around it. If it's going to flip, you want to flip it in your favor.
See who's the master burger flipper here tonight. I do feel like we're going to have a lot of contest across the board in this matchup. A lot more, again, that we saw from that first series of the day. And I expect a little bit more of the punching back and forth here. Though we didn't see that necessarily like straight bolt down towards bottom lane. There was a lot of hovering from both junglers between mid and bot.
So, important thing here as well, Scout actually has control of mid lane on this Jayce, which means that if something blows up bot side, that Shock Blast is going to come into the fray. LNG not choosing to play around that, though. I think they understand that Sion is going to be on that side of the map. Instead, not choosing to contest for that scuttle, go towards top. And as much as we talked about, oh, Zika, you're in trouble there, mate.
A little bit of trouble. Does get a little bit back. And Tarzan, instead of bolting bot lane, has bolted top lane. And Ben has a spooky spider to deal with. We'll see which one of the terrors of Australia will be able to take him down. Though Ben wants to trade back, try to get out with this flash. The repel comes through. Tarzan cannot follow up the damage, and Ben gets out with his flash.
That was really good rage management from Ben. Understands that he needs the empowered Q to get the heal onto the champion. Tarzan lands the cocoon, but the extra healing comes through. It means that Ben does end up escaping and uses Slice and Dice just at the end to buy himself some more distance. So mechanically well played from Ben. Picks himself up a cult. Doesn't even bother using his teleport to the tower. Going to keep that one for the next phase of lane. And the first look of junglers into the lanes does nothing. Not
unbreakable. Going to do a decent amount of work to stop a lot of the damage going at LP, and they'll be able to poke back. That's some of the damage back that you'll always take from the trade of an Ashe.
There you go. Shield comes up level 3 now, but still, Ignite goes down. Just making sure that a very important thing with Draven is that he has to keep hitting something to keep his axes up. Even if he's not clearing the wave, just having occasional auto attacks means that he doesn't need to waste mana on keeping restacking them. So on kind of trading his HP bar to allow Elk to kind of keep both spinning axes up. When you have 2 spinning axes, your axes just do so much damage. On going to reset, gets himself back onto the map, has himself a ward, has himself a chance to combo up with Sion as well. Very important to see what happens in the next minute or two to see if On and Sion can make something happen.
I've actually been really entertained by the Vision games and a lot of the pings going down, although not a big factor here. It's literally been about Sion and Tarzan like trying to feel out where the Vision game has been. Pings coming out everywhere, trying to figure out what best path you can take to try to have some influence here. And we have seen both of them in that kind of hesitant circle where we tried to get a top lane gank for Tarzan. Now we're getting a little bit of Sion trying to get an objective for BLG.
Yeah, and the difference between playing around stuff like, Yuumi last patch, stuff like the Nami and the Lulu that we still see a lot of, is that when you go back to melee supports, they ward differently, they roam differently, very early into the game. Someone like On, getting a reset at that point, going into Fog of War, you need to pay attention to that. And as much as we played against that, everyone's played against that for a number of years now at this point, the amount of times they've been meta has been very, very high. You need to remember that in the heat of the moment.
Oh, that's really big onto Elk. If they can get one more on the concussive blows, don't actually connect that one. So Elk able to get out of there with a little bit of damage onto On. Tarzan will be spotted out on the bot side of the map with Sion just nearby. A little bit of push from LNG's bot lane.
So, seeing now again, these junglers kind of sparring across the rift, not really finding easy openings.
Hello, Sion.
Whole game right now. Hi, Sion. He's seen. He's going to head towards that scuttle respawn. Yagao has control of the wave. First mid-jungle 2v2 of the game.
Oh, we got the train coming as well. Zika trying to join this 3v3. And maybe this is the fight we wanted. I believe that Tarzan got that one. He did. Yagao going in on a scout, trying to push him back, but that was a beautiful stun from Zika. Now you got Ben going in on to Zika himself. Scout trying to close, and we're just getting a 3v3 that's now about to turn into an uneven one as LNG capitalize.
They get themselves that first kill on the board, and it is starting to look a little bit dicey for BLG through this mid-jungle. One of the worries I had for LNG is actually if they don't get ahead through something like the Jayce, maybe they start falling off in terms of their damage, but Scout gets that kill, Scout gets a little bit ahead. BLG will need to keep that in check. They cannot allow that gold lead to get too much bigger. Jayce, we've seen what he can do on these kind of patches.
Interested that BLG stuck around in that fight for so long. Again, it felt like maybe some of that hesitancy coming back because they were like pulling out, but they decided not to, try to go back in for an engage with that stun onto Zika. But it was just a back and forth that you give that to LNG, they'll take it.
They do. And, Sion is always going to be the first to the play. you know, Zika is always going to be first to that play because of his ultimate, and he does a really good job of just buying time. Just buying so much time to say, all right, yeah, that's fine. But I think that maybe BLG get baited in by the fact that, you know, Renekton's point of power is having double empowered abilities. He gets the one down there, maybe just like sees red in his own rage bar, and Bin again is stuck in an awkward place. Hell already taken, but he's alone.
He has no teammates this time. He's in a 1v4 and he's not getting out alive. Scout gets his second kill of the game.
Yeah, so about that whole lead on Jayce being important to kind of keep in check. Another kill goes over immediately, as we say about it. LNG, they understand where the leads are important to get, and they start hammering down on that. Tarzan, make sure he's not caught out in his own jungle as well. They understand that On could be around. BLG taking a couple of fights back to back, which feels they really didn't need to commit to.
So far, it's been the bane of this first game for them as well, with a 1.5k lead already for LNG, and some of that bot lane pressure we needed from Elk and On, maybe some of those resources delivered down there not being delivered, maybe the delivery date being a little bit miscommunicated, and BLG not able to find their early advantage anywhere they wanted. Now they're relying a little bit more so on some reactive plays. Yeah,
I think you have to pray on mistakes at this point. Maybe you can get On out onto the map, use this Nautilus, just as this level 6 is kind of coming up in the next minute or two as well. Make something happen somewhere. Yagao also getting to the point where he can be a playmaker as well. I've seen one shuffle not quite lead to a kill. BLG need to start moving some members across the map, see if they can catch LNG at a numbers disadvantage somewhere, because when it's come to these even fights, they've struggled to match things.
On still can't hit that level 6 mark. I'm just waiting for the trigger to get pulled by LP and Hung, honestly, down there, but don't do it, as well as the roams are now coming out from Hung and On towards this mid lane.
On getting out onto the map, but it's not uneven numbers. LNG matched. They see it coming. They understand the movements. They have enough vision in that river to make sure that BLG can't get easy plays. BLG not just winning the fights which they've had so far, but making sure that BLG aren't getting that point of power onto this map too.
A little bit of damage back and forth here. The Eclipse has now been completed for Scout in the mid lane. It's going to be doing even more damage on those shots, and you already see some pings from LNG down towards the bottom side of the map, where Dragon is spawning in about 30 seconds.
That is so. Item breakpoints starting to be built for this first couple of big fights of the game. We didn't really see a fight over that Herald, which would have been another place where potentially BLG would have looked to fight around, but that was just Bin kind of walking in there alone. So, Dragon up in the next 10 seconds. BLG won't have first crack at it. They will have to kind of come through the river, go into LNG territory, and Hung and Tarzan standing on vision for now, but able to just push a little bit further into the jungle and make sure that they see BLG coming.
Spiders are less scary when they have a spotlight on them. Did you know that?
No, so they kind of are, but then, like, you know that bit when they stand really still and then they just scuttle at you really quickly, or scuttle somewhere. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm feeling could happen in this game as well. Bin flashing past the knockup.
Dominus popped. He's trying to assert that dominance up here in the top side, but Zika is just a little bit too tanky. That was pretty bold from Bin.
It is, but it denies that that Sion ultimate for any eventual play which could come down here. It's teleport advantage to LNG, denying the Sion some ability to impact the fight. Make sure that he has to recall. Maybe he could have given BLG an extra way to look at this fight, but they're going to choose to not fight towards it. We see Draven picked up the Essence Reaver. So this is a good point to talk about some itemization. Draven's going to go down. We expect there to be no contest over this one. Draven picks up the Essence Reaver. Of course, what you can do with something like Draven now is go towards a really bursty kind of build. We've seen stuff like Essence Reaver into something like Infinity Edge very, very quickly. Just gives you a large amount of burst. Just going to hold on to that thought for now. I was wondering if there was going to be a blast cone over. They spot themselves on a ward over there. Hung, I'm sure you want to walk up too far.
Elk's trying to bait them. They do get the bait onto Hung. There's the CC chain and the wall not used the right way. Blowing back. Our BLG is on, picks up a kill.
But it's not the cash in. That would have been a great time to get a hold yourself. A little bit of extra gold. You're already looking down 2 kills in this Jayce. Getting yourself to some more items on the Draven could be very important. You know, we're talking about Draven itemization. As much as you can go towards bursty, even something like a Bloodthirster could be really, really huge in this game because you can shrug off a bit more of that poke. Still, it is gold on the board for BLG. It's a good thing. It's just you're left ruining what could have been a bigger victory at this point.
See if On can get that cash in sometime soon for himself. But as you were kind of mentioning earlier, but now getting more so there, are these item completions, at least first items, for both sides to some extent getting here close. Elk having used that cleanse there. LP taking some shots, but Hung coming to save the day. And the flash comes out, but you can't run away from the Freljord as the icy grip of death hits Elk.
Oh, a hero move from Hung to get there just in time. Flashes forward. Shield onto the Whirling Death means there is no threat of LP going down after that point. And Elk just overstays, so doesn't get the cash in. Loses his stacks just afterwards. LNG managing to claw themselves an important victory in that bot side. Kills onto both of their damage dealers in Jayce and Ashe. Very important in this early game to make sure that BLG don't get to the point where they can maybe just out-damage with an Azir and Draven later into the game.
That's where I do want to ask in terms of that late game potential, maybe insurance policy that they might need to have cashed in on at some point before this match started for BLG, but it is still something to kind of hold on to as we look at this bot lane play.
Yeah, you can see how much the single item spike of the Essence Reaver really powerful for Draven. Thing about getting Sheen items on Draven is that because you get a W cast every time you catch an axe, you always have another thing to proc your Sheen. So even on that single item, really, really strong. As you can see, it had to really be that last-minute heroic save from the Braum to make sure that wasn't going to be a lost play, despite the ultimate hitting. Going back out into the map, though, BLG parking their bot lane towards the mid lane. Herald not started up by LNG and Bin, making sure that he's going to try and get control of his top lane again.
Got a little 3v3 in the mid lane. There's nothing to be pulled just yet, as we have had the obvious lane swaps with another Rift Herald on the board for LNG. Looks like BLG will just let that one go, and they realize the strength of LNG's early game comp and where the gold has given. There's not really much of a contest that can come across from BLG.
No,
they do want to try to find a preemptive play here, though. They'll try to get onto LP. All the flashes coming out. That's a nice Glacial Fissure, though. LP getting knocked back. LP should go down to Shun. There's TPs coming in, but that's the accelerated shock blast. And that's 2 kills for Scout as the impenetrable wall of LNG have come and crushed down on BLG.
And that fight, the initial engage, looks good until you realize that Braum is soaking up an ungodly amount of damage. BLG just cannot get to the Ashe quick enough. It really is such a DPS difference. As soon as Scout turns back up, it swings back in LNG's favor. But the real hero of that play is the Braum. It is Hung. He's going to buy them the Herald after that point. 2 kills, Herald. The gold's going to start ballooning with this 2. Huge play. And a bit of an overestimation from Shun and the bot lane of BLG. Like, again, just look how much damage and how much time is bought by LNG and the Sion. And the, yeah, absolutely crazy. It's so much time bought. The damage is just not there at this point in the game.
I see now where they want to use this Rift Herald as well. They still have all the towers open and available to them. As actually looks like BLG were maybe looking for a little bit of vision game on the bottom side of the map. He got Dragon in a minute, and I'm sure LNG want to keep putting the pedal to the metal with Scout having 4 kills now. And we do see Scout getting that side lane tower, and that'll be first tower of the game.
He is so accelerated, man. And what that means is that every time you turn up to an objective, you know, like the Dragon in a minute, you are facing a Jayce at points of power he just shouldn't be at. You don't have large amounts of life steal onto Elk just yet. I'm actually pretty sure he doesn't have a second item just yet. That would be very strange if he did. Yeah, he doesn't even have Self-Defense Scepter or anything like that, yeah. Yagao, of course, on the Azir, doesn't have any sustain at all. He's gone for himself, gone for Ludens as well, so you can't even try and shrug off some of these shock blasts, maybe with a crown. We've seen that very occasionally into the Jayce, even though, you know, trading a crown for a 1 skill shot, not normally valuable. You might think about it in this game when you do have the 2 item spike coming in from Scout. Very dangerous now, point in place for Jayce. Watch where he is on the map. BLG do not win if Scout is doing damage.
Oh my god, like Ben! He's gonna go down. That's a flash out from the top laner of BLG, but he's about to walk straight into a spider, and those fangs sink deep.
So do we need to just, like, replay the last 30 seconds? Jayce strong, don't fight Jayce. BLG don't get the choice, though. Scout forces the issue in the side lane, and Bin on this Renekton, it was a takeaway from Zika. It was meant to hold the Sion back. It hasn't done that. You're sat at 0-3 now. BLG, problems across the map. They're really starting to stare down a very disastrous mid-game at this point.
On trying to catch out LP there. Can't do it. Now you get the unstoppable onslaught. The chain CC coming in. Scout with the big deadly blow from the side. And Tarzan gets himself a second kill.
Oh my gosh, it goes from bad to worse. You lose one person on the side lane, you
Oh
push
my
in
God.
bot lane, you roam back towards mid, Scout takes another tower. Scout is
does so
absolutely
much
demolishing the side lanes.
Jesus Christ, man. He just is already melting turrets. And what a performance from Scout. We have, had questions at the beginning. What's he going to look like away from EDG? Well, there is no question in my mind. He is the power point of LNG here.
Absolutely. And I love how, we were bigging up the mid jungle from LNG. This duo is scary. We understand that they are one of the very best in the league right now. Immediately get a kill bot side. Immediately through that kind of power as well, they get something in the mid lane as well. It does feel like LNG at this point, they are just going to start taking off. You're really praying now as BLG that you can find a way to play away from the Jayce. It's very hard doing that when your options to play away from the Jayce is into a Braum and into a Sion. It gets very difficult to choose fights at this point. But you somehow need to find a place where you can fight away from the huge gold advantage in the mid lane.
Well, our hike's going pretty good if you're an LNG fan. You just said something about them taking off. I don't know where there's a runway in the jungle or where we're hiking, but maybe we can try to get on the LNG plane as
it's
it
just
leaves.
Like they've actually just ascended. It's actually not mechanical flight. They've just gone to a higher plane of existence.
I loved it. I love it. But LNG needing to put the pedal to the metal here, feels like, as they do have this strong lead. Want to see them close this out. 5,000 gold in the lead under 20 minutes. You see they're just looking and trying to fish out for BLG.
And as dominant as this early game has been, we actually just came off of a game which was the fastest game in the season. So just keep that back in context. Those of you who've been with us for multiple of these series, Braum going to look for an ultimate.
He's not going to get the concussive blows down there just yet, as On able to tank out a little bit more. The rest of LNG should be able to pull away. You're looking into the side lane now, Bin versus Zika. You should be looking to press onto an inhib tower while there's a Baron coming up here. Hung needs to be a little bit careful.
That he does. Every shot blast coming out of Scout. I mean, I think BLG, at that point, they kind of wince as it lands onto Nautilus, but at least it's
They're
not
going to find
Draven,
LP.
right?
Oh,
I'm going to try and find him, but
Sand.
again, it's like, even if they found LP at that point, you realize that there could just be a flash stand aside into a shield, and despite Hung maybe going down in that kind of case, again, every time BLG are looking through Shun to make an aggressive play, to make an engaging movement, it's so difficult. There are so many things which can hold them to account, and with double teleports available as well, third item comes into Jayce, and that 3-item Jayce can teleport into these plays. He's just going to hold that summoner spell at this point. LNG, whenever they split away from the map, you're never going to have a time to quickly finish a fight before these players come back into the fold at this point. It is... I don't envy BLG.
He does so much damage now.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
He's so fast. He's so damagey. Get you one that can protect and attack. We'll see BLG, though, try to find maybe a little bit of promise here as On getting out for a second, but maybe this is the capitalization BLG needed. Yeah, depth charge onto Scout. The blade or whirling death goes wide. Oh, he gets the cash in. Elk gets money. We actually got a little bit of something for BLG as they're trying to get a little bit more. Yagao gets a big push back for Scout, but Scout slams the hammer down and gets one back and forth. LNG, it's a trade of 2 for 3, but they'll take that all day long.
Yeah, they'll take that, but how the heck does it still end up being those traded kills back? At the start of the play, you kill the Braum, but as we were saying, Braum is more than happy to give their life for the cause in this case. Put the shield up, even though it's a kill onto Draven. The Draven's died 3 times already. It's not a huge amount of stacks going in, despite it being much needed for BLG. And Yagao finds something back in this mid lane matchup, has been sat kind of being a spectator so far, watching Scout get an unholy amount of gold. This is really his first time to really get involved in the game. It is an important move, though.
It is. As we take a look back at that preemptive play from LNG, it's that overextension that BLG can capitalize on.
Yeah, and it is an overextension onto Scout, who's looking to get efficient damage down. But again, just look how much damage Hung is soaking up. He does die. It does go into Elk, but that damage isn't into Scout. It isn't into LP. It really does take Yagao finding the moment to kind of see that Bin is buying enough space on the backline to find something on the Scout. Even then, the gold you have given Scout is enough for him to get one back. He's 6-1-2 now. At least he's got the 1 death to his name. Still got a shutdown. No, he's still, even after dying, got extra gold in his pocket. That's how fed this member is.
Now you're looking 30 seconds away from another dragon here, but they're finding the engage. Glatzel Fisher, Yagao,
Oh,
they're
Yagao.
looking for revenge here as they had gotten caught out a little bit. Now Elk is the one that gets dragged down, and LNG is just under tower here. There's not much for BLG to say.
No, and with Baron spawned, you got to imagine that's where they're heading. Jungle is alive for BLG. You just don't expect it to be much of a position to fight. LNG need to just deny a steal. I think they've got everything else in check. Teleport coming out from Yagao, though. Maybe that dissuades them.
Oh, gotta be careful. That's even with a shield and everything around him. On takes that much damage. And we should see LNG, who are just trying to pull the movement of BLG towards the top side, now moving to the dragon.
It reminds me of previous metas where you used to see a lot more poke compositions where you just hear the audience just like that intake of breath that winces. Just like, there is a physical, visceral reaction to seeing one of those shot blasts lands a scout. Yeah,
There's about to be a physical reaction in terms of maybe Shun going down. He does have the rest of the... No! No! Oh! We get the reactions here. Scout able to pull one back onto Shun.
That wasn't even accelerated. That was just a regular little shot blast.
Tap.
That wasn't even the big one. Again, Scout just making his presence felt on this map. And now the jungler's dead. You're going to have to look for a fight from BLG. Scout looking for these shot blasts over the wall.
You got big, tanky Zika, who can come around the corner, about to have that unstoppable onslaught, but it is the Baron focus. Now the turn. As the entire Crystal Arrow comes out, Yagao takes a big chunk of damage. Bin, he goes in to tank the team, but he has to immediately turn tail. Yagao with a big push, but he's immediately dursted down as Elk gets one back, but he's out of the fight as well. And LNG, they should just turn back to control this game.
LNG are holding BLG over the fire, over the Baron pit, and just saying, you gotta come to us, you can't let us be on this objective for free, and they just keep turning. Shun finally back out on the map, so maybe LNG not willing to start it up while the smite is available, but LNG, they're more than happy to just keep running this play back. They say, look, you're gonna have to come answer us, we can play for the turn or for the take, you have to come towards us, and we have more than enough damage to force you back into very difficult scenarios. LNG, again, this is the 6-1 team coming into this series, tied for first at top esports, and you can see why they have this real kind of allure to them. They have a real understanding of what's winning them the game in this mid game. Hung once again on this Braum, making it very difficult for BLG to get the kills onto the backline. And it doesn't matter that the Braum is dying. It's another cash into the Draven, sure, but you're losing the fight, you're losing control of the side of the map, and LNG are more with the way this game is playing out.
I think it just comes from a lot of that draft priority here. They had a plan when it came from the draft, but the execution fell down the wayside, and now they don't really have a response on the map with how much of a lead that LNG have. 6,000, but it feels like 12,000 at this point with a lot of the oppression that we're getting in these fights. But Elk takes a big chunk, and that wasn't even from the big centerpiece. And we'll see Ben trying to push up that mid lane, but the defense just has to continue for BLG.
It does. LNG just, again, trying to control this Baron pit. Playing for the turn, they have so much ability with the Ashe ult and the follow-up from the long range to make BLG very
grand flank.
But he's not here for the fight now, so good luck without the fight.
The team is already getting engaged on. Bin's tanking. Shun can come over the wall. Bin's already down, though. I don't think that means anybody for BLG wants to take that fight.
This is just the same play replayed over and over. LNG, again, very happy to just head towards the Baron pit. BLG cannot afford to let lights go dark in that area of the map. Cocoon just about missing. But LNG, they're on the sole point. They keep forcing BLG towards this Baron pit. Scout, whenever he gets a free opportunity to hit anyone, whether that's champions or turrets, they absolutely disintegrate. Gonna start controlling vision once more. And BLG, they can't break this endless crashing of waves.
They cannot, as we do see the Baron started up by LNG. They're TPing actually behind as well. Zika is coming. He doesn't have the unstoppable onslaught, but he has Scout right there. Shun's honestly using Zika to try to get out of this one, and he does, but no! The sniper shot from Scout!
In any other world, Jayce would not have the damage to kill the Vi at this point in the game, but he's got so much damage. He's heading towards a 4th item, nearly 28 minutes into this game. This will finally be the Baron going down, which is in time for them to reset, to get back out onto the map, and to get an Infernal Soul Dragon in just over a minute. LNG playing it by the book. This is ruthless.
It is. Nymeara, I got to talk about this as well because
Talk to me.
it isn't for the lack of trying for BLG. Yagao, he's 1-1-2. His opposing mid laner is 9-1-3. And we've seen Scout Tarzan connecting in these side lanes be the kicker. And it is a beautiful execution from LNG and a quiet little go off into the dark for BLG in this game one.
Yeah, and it's the step beyond getting an advantage, which is so impressive from LNG. Yeah, they got the advantage, they got the early kills, but they know how to use it as well. They keep running that play back around the Baron and keep understanding where they are strongest. Now they're moving around with the Jayce as the centerpiece of this bot lane push as well. At least Ben is looking for a cross map on the other side, but you can't afford to get caught out here.
Even just the one shock blast, Yagao has to get away. The repel did come out from Tarzan. And another shock blast blocked by On. You've got Ben taking a tier 2 in the top side, but On just keeps tanking these shots, and Zika's pushing mid lane now.
Pushing them up, but without the Renekton, what can you really do in an uneven numbers fight? You're outgunned, you're outranged, you're outnumbered, you're losing your inhibitors. BLG, what's your answer here?
I'm trying to find it. They're doing the math live, and I was told never to do math live, as now Zika will be taking the engage from Shun and Elk. Elk doing a decent amount of damage back, having completed that IE, but not enough to really have anything to say as Ben try to get out of here. Should do so with a TP out and a flank. This is big, as maybe they can look for a play, but immediately Ben pulls off.
Shock Blast landing takes, you know, a good quarter of Ben's HP off, despite him building up more HP than most. Scout just gets to walk over, doesn't even have to use his teleport himself. Dragon is live, Sion is cast.
Here comes the unstoppable onslaught, and it's just that from LNG. They are relentless, they are brutal, and they are eviscerating BLG.
We have seen some very dominant early games today. Saw some from JDG earlier on. Another kill leads LNG on their march towards this Nexus.
One auto attack does so much from Scout against these turrets, and it was a bar of execution that BLG could not rise to the occasion for. And game one goes whole-handedly to LNG, and so far BLG have nothing to say.
Quiet game from BLG. Really did feel as soon as you saw that Sion and the Braum locked in towards that box, towards like the last part of their draft, it was like, okay. It's going to be difficult if you don't end up kind of surviving through to the point where Azir can carry you. Nautilus couldn't get enough done early. He fell behind against that Jayce, and as soon as that Jayce was ahead, Scout just made sure that game was put to bed. LNG, really impressive game. We are sat here considering them one of our top teams in the LPL. They haven't played all of our top teams yet. They have a lot of them coming up. As we said, they kind of got this series, and then they have Weibo, EDG, top JDG. Like, an incredible run after that point for them to prove that they are the very best. It's going to be a heck of a gauntlet for them to face. But this game here showing that actually even against like your mid-table teams which are not bad, like BLG, they can really just rise above.
And that has been kind of the statement of the day, it feels like. We had kind of tests that we needed from each team so far, where in the first series it was, can JDG truly punch down on a lower team? They did, and now LNG,
yes,
they are dominant as ever for mid-jungle, and especially the way they went about it, right? They drafted the Elise early. They were like, hey, what are you going to have as a response? They took the aggression there, moving Scout as well as much as they could, and it really was just a full frontal assault from LNG.
So you have to start thinking towards that second game. Are you going to lock in a similar kind of bot lane at that point? I think that when we saw that Draven locked in early, I think they got a little bit bamboozled, did VLG, because you see the Ashe and you think, oh, maybe it's going to be the Ashe support. They flex it towards the AD carry, the Braum comes in. You actually can't play through that lane in the same way. And that led them to this very awkward situation of, you can't fight early. The Nautilus getting answered by the Braum, and the Braum answers so many of the champions on VLG in general. For me, if I could allow myself to have a hot take, I would actually say Hung was my player of the game over Scout, despite Scout having so much damage. That would be like my, at the very least, I want to put like a serious credit to you saying, look, you did a really good job of shutting down everything that BLG wants to do. You died for the team, and you did so much to allow Scout and LP to have a much more clean game.
You sound like a support player.
No, this is the worst thing. I am a mid lane player. I love mid lane. And yet, even then, I'm like, Yeah, it was pretty good Braum, actually.
Pretty good Braum. I think it came more with, like, obviously execution was something, but it was also the pick just paying dividends for LNG, just in like crucial structure,
Okay,
right?
MVP champion was the Braum. MVP player, yeah, I can understand that big scout.
I was gonna say, how many clips of those chunks of health coming off of people's health bar do you need until it switches your mind? But we will take a
we'll
little
run it
break
again. We'll
here.
see it after the break.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Who gets that MVP as well? We'll take a little break here while we come back with game 2.